My last case at the hospital happened 8 months ago. I was 34 and working as a social worker. I hadn't planned to be in the psych ward. They needed someone to fill in, so there I was. At first, it felt normal. Just more paperwork and the occasional concern from families. But I've never stopped thinking about it. When I started my late shift, the hospital was quiet. The hum of machines echoed off the walls. The fluorescent lights flickered above me. I could smell the antiseptic in the air. It felt lonely. I was used to the rush in other departments, but this was different. Around midnight, I began to hear whispers. They were faint, like the wind. I thought maybe I was tired or imagining things after a long day. I shook it off and went back to reviewing files. But the whispers didn't go away. They grew louder each night. I often wondered if my mind was playing tricks on me. Sometimes I thought I heard my name, but I was always alone. I felt uneasy, like something wasn't right. One night, I noticed a patient in room 312. He had been unresponsive for weeks. As the whispers grew louder, he seemed to shift, almost aware. I watched him closely, but he just stared into shadows. Maybe he was hearing the voices too. I asked a few staff members about it. Their responses were vague. Some grew unsettled when I mentioned the whispers. They avoided the subject like it was taboo. This psych ward had a dark past. I told myself I just didn't understand it yet. Then one night, I walked by room 312 and felt a chill run down my spine. The whispers surrounded me, vivid and urgent. I could almost make out a cry for help. I froze. My heart pounded. I glanced in the room. The patient was staring right at me, eyes wide open. Maybe he knew something I didn't. I stepped back, shaking. The whispers seemed to wrap around me. I remembered how the other staff had talked in hushed tones. I wondered if they shared fears I didn't know about. It felt wrong, like I was being drawn into something dark. Then I heard it, right next to my ear. Someone whispered, "Help us." I turned quickly, but the corridor was empty. My breathing quickened. Now as I stand here, I try to make sense of it all. What was happening in that ward? Was I losing my mind? I still hear whispers sometimes, even now. They linger in my thoughts, echoing in the silence. I wonder if I should have stayed away. I wonder if the voices are real or just in my head. I can't forget. I can't let it go. Maybe I was meant to hear them after all. The next day, I felt a weight resting on my chest. I couldn't shake the idea of room 312, the patient, and those whispers. I arrived at the hospital with the intention to confront my fears. Maybe if I asked the right questions, I could uncover whatever was lurking in the shadows. I made my way to the nurses' station, trying to act casual. The nurses were chatting as I approached, but they fell silent when I spoke. "About room 312. Can we talk about that patient?" The tension was palpable. Tina, one of the nurses, shifted her eyes away. "We don't really discuss patients like that," she said, her voice tight. "Why not?" I pressed. "Something feels off. You all seem so uneasy about it." "Just stay away from that room," she replied, glancing around. "It's better for everyone." I felt frustration bubble up. "But I need to know why. What's happening?" Before she could answer, a loud crash echoed from the direction of room 312. We all jumped, and I felt my heart leap in my chest. I bolted towards the sound. My feet moved before my mind could catch up. As I neared the room, I saw the door swinging open. I hesitated, but steeled myself to step inside. The dim light illuminated the scene, an overturned chair and papers scattered across the floor. Then I heard it. Low and rumbling, the whispers were back, swirling around me like a storm. My heart raced. I took a deep breath and called out, "Hello? Is anyone in here?" A shift caught my eye. The patient in the bed was sitting up, his eyes darting wildly. It seemed as if he was seeing things that weren't there. He mumbled incoherently, but the whispers rose above his words, more frantic now. "Can't you hear them?" he gasped, eyes wide with terror. "They're everywhere. They want to get out." "Who? Who are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. He strained forward, reaching out with trembling hands. "You must help us, before it's too late." Suddenly, the whispers crescendoed, and a chill filled the room. I could feel the energy shift. Something was wrong. I wanted to run, but I was rooted in place. The walls seemed to close in. Then everything went dark. The fluorescent lights flickered violently before going out completely. The room plunged into an oppressive silence. My pulse was a drum in my ears. I felt a cold breath on my neck. "Help us," it whispered again. Panic surged through me. Adrenaline fought against the dark. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the screen illuminating the space around me. I glanced down, a lifeline in the darkness, but as I looked back at the patient, my heart sank. He was gone. The bed was empty. I was alone again. Or was I? That's when I noticed the closet door slowly creaking open behind me. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. Someone, or something, was waiting for me. I slowly turned to face the closet, breath catching in my throat. The door creaked wider, revealing a shadowy void. The air felt heavier, charged with something I couldn't quite name. I took a hesitant step backward, but my foot stumbled over a chair leg and I nearly fell. "Is someone there?" I called, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. No response, just silence, thick and suffocating. I glanced back at the empty bed, the sheets still wrinkled where the patient had been moments ago. My heart raced, balancing my need to find out what was happening with the instinct to flee. I took another step toward the closet. "Please," I whispered into the dark, "if you need help, show yourself." Nothing stirred, but the whispers grew louder, flooding my mind. I covered my ears, trying to block them out, but they wormed their way in, blurring my thoughts. "Help us." The phrase echoed with urgency, both pleading and foreboding. Suddenly, movement caught my eye. A figure emerged from the shadows of the closet. My heart sank. It was the patient, but his appearance was altered. His eyes were sunken, skin pale and ghostly. He looked like a shell of the man I'd just seen, distorted and wrong. I took a step back, my mind racing. "What happened to you?" I gasped. "Where did you go?" "Lost," he whispered, his voice softer now. "We're all lost. You must listen. They don't want to be trapped." I couldn't breathe. A part of me wanted to scream, to run, but deep down, a nagging curiosity held me frozen. "Who are they?" "Souls. Once real, now shadows. They need freedom," he said, trembling as if he could barely maintain his form. "You have to help. You're the only one who can." Panic surged again, a flood of questions drowning me. My body wanted to bolt, but my mind latched onto the idea that maybe, just maybe, I could help him. "How?" I forced the word out, desperate for clarity. "The key." He pointed to the floor. "You must find the key." The room suddenly shifted. The walls began to thrum, vibrating with energy. Papers swirled around the room like they were caught in a whirlwind. I tried to shield my face, but a sheet struck me, and in that brief distraction, the patient faded before my eyes, leaving only the whispers behind. "Find the key. Find the key." As reality settled back into place, I noticed a glint of metal partially buried beneath the papers on the floor. My heart raced. Was it the key? I lunged down, my fingers closing around it. It was cold to the touch, and old, intricate designs etched into the surface. But before I could catch my breath, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the room once more. I glanced up. The empty bed stared back at me, eerily calm, but the whispers grew frantic. "Time is running out." My breath quickened. Not only had I stumbled onto something sinister, but I was also now involved far deeper than I ever intended. I needed to figure out what this key unlocked before it was too late. Then came a loud banging from inside the closet, a heavy thud as if something was trying to get out. The fear clawed at me harder than before, but a tiny ember of determination began to flicker. Whatever I had just uncovered was just the beginning. The banging continued, each thud reverberating through the room like a warning bell. I was frozen for a heartbeat, my mind racing through every possible horror I could imagine. I gripped the key tightly in my hand, the metal cold and unyielding against my palm. "Stop!" I yelled at the closet, as if demanding silence could somehow quell the dread building inside me. My heart pounded like a drum, each beat urging me to flee. But another sound broke through my panic, a soft whispering, almost comforting in its familiarity. "Help us!" it cried out again, the voices blending into one haunting plea. I took a deep breath, trying to summon courage from somewhere deep within. I couldn't just stand there. I was in this now, and I had to find out more. "What do you want?" I screamed at the closet, as if it could answer me. Then silence fell, the air thick with anticipation. I moved closer, the floor creaking beneath my weight. With one hand, I pushed the closet door wider open. Dark shadows loomed within, swirling like mist. As the darkness parted, I could see something glimmering at the far back. It looked like an old mirror, its edges adorned with intricate carvings that matched the designs on the key. "What is this?" I murmured to myself, feeling drawn to it. I reached out tentatively, my fingers brushing against the cool surface. Suddenly, a gust of wind spiraled out from the mirror, sending loose papers swirling. I staggered back as the breath of air chilled my skin, a faint light flickering within the glass like a distant star. The whispers returned, now layered with urgency. "You must choose, free us or be trapped forever," the voices echoed, a choir resonating from deep within the glass. "What does that mean?" I gasped, the weight of their words pressing down on me. I glanced at the key once more, its surface reflecting the dim light from the mirror. I didn't understand, but in my gut, I felt that this was the key to unlocking something far more significant. Then, without warning, the mirror began to ripple. A face appeared, half-formed, hovering within the glass. It was neither alive nor truly dead. It looked like the patient from before, though he bore an expression of agony mixed with hope. "Help! Us!" His mouth moved, though I could barely hear the words over the tumult of emotions swirling inside me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a chair, my mind whirling. "What do I do?" I shouted at him, the panic threatening to take hold again. "Find the truth," he said, the intensity in his gaze piercing through the veil of fear surrounding me. "Unlock it." Then the mirror shimmered, the light fading as the face vanished. The whispers faded as well, plunging me back into silence. I stood there, breathing heavily. The key still felt heavy in my palm, a tether to whatever darkness awaited me. That's when the lights flickered again above me, casting shadows that danced eerily across the room. I clutched the key harder, a determination surging through me. I might not have all the answers, but I couldn't ignore the urgency. I had to confront the truth, whatever it was, before it consumed me. And then everything went dark. I jolted awake, breathless and disoriented. The darkness pressed in around me like a heavy blanket. I could barely see my own hands in front of my face. My heart raced from the adrenaline, yet the silence felt suffocating. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky in the emptiness. No answer came. Just as panic began to creep back in, a glimmer of light flickered in the distance. It was weak, but it was enough to pull me forward. I stumbled toward it, the cold floor biting at my feet, the key still clutched in my hand, a talisman against whatever lurked in the shadows. As I approached the source of the light, I kicked aside scattered objects that had fallen during the sudden blackout. A broken lamp, a few books, and a picture frame shattered on the floor. The light grew brighter as I moved, revealing the old mirror still reflecting the dimness of the room. but now the surface was rippling again, swirling like troubled water. I hesitated, a new wave of fear washing over me. Hadn't I just escaped its grasp? Unlock it. I could still hear the phantom's voice echoing in my ears. Was I really supposed to use the key? I placed the key in the lock engraved on the side of the mirror and felt a surge of energy pulse through it. The mirror vibrated, and for a moment I was pulled into its depths, like I was standing on the edge of a portal. "Do it!" The chorus of voices came back, filling the air with urgency. I bit my lip and turned the key, the sound echoing like thunder in the quiet space. The moment the final turn clicked, the mirror exploded in a bright light that blinded me. I shielded my eyes just in time as fragments of the mirror shattered outward like glass rain. I stumbled back, landing hard on the floor. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer in my room. I stood in a stark white hallway, its sterile glow lighting the way. I was back in the hospital, the same one I had visited 8 months ago. Confusion swept over me as I tried to make sense of what was happening. The whispering voices filled the air again, but now they were sharper, clearer. "Help us! Stop him!" they pleaded, a sense of urgency that I couldn't ignore. I glanced around, searching for the source. That's when I saw it. A figure standing at the far end of the hallway, draped in shadows, watching me. My heart raced, a cold sweat trickling down my spine. I wanted to back away, but I was frozen in place. "Who are you?" I called out, the question escaping before I could think. The figure didn't move or respond. The whispers grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. "Help us!" I didn't want to go closer, but the key in my hand thrummed like a living thing. I remembered the voices from before, their pleading tones igniting a burning need to understand. I stepped forward, intent on discovering the truth behind the figure and the cries for help. But the moment I did, the lights flickered and the figure vanished, like mist evaporating in the dawn. "There's someone here who needs you." The whispers echoed again, laced with an unshakable urgency. My breath caught in my throat. I had to find out what was happening. I had to confront whatever was hidden. Before I could think it through, I ran down the hall, eager to face whatever awaited me, uncertainty and fear propelling me forward. The hallway stretched endlessly, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. I picked up my pace, each step echoing against the sterile walls. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't ignore. Each corner I rounded felt like a doorway to another layer of confusion. "Stop him!" The whispers were more insistent now, pushing me to move faster. I turned the next corner and spotted a door marked Psychiatric Unit. It slammed shut just as I approached. Panic fluttered in my chest. Why was I here? I should have been in my room, safe. "Help us!" The voices grew frantic, intertwining with my thoughts. My own mind felt like it was unraveling. The key in my hand felt absurdly out of place. What was it supposed to unlock here? I tried the door handle. It was locked. I could feel warmth radiating from the other side, like something alive was waiting for me. "Let me in!" I shouted, banging my fist against the door. No answer came. I dropped my head, feeling the weight of dread settle in. Then, something shifted in the air. The whispers seemed to synchronize, growing quieter for a moment. I raised my head, catching the faint outline of something behind the glass panel in the center of the door. A face, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to plead with me. "Don't let him in," the figure mouthed, though no sound reached me. Fear washed over me again. Who was he warning me about? Before I could process anything, the lights flickered ominously, bathing the hallway in shadows. I stepped back, my instincts screaming to run. But I stood frozen, the figure's warning hanging over my head. I was pushed to action by an invisible force, and I turned sharply from the door to find another path. As I hurried down the corridor, the air grew colder. My breath hung in front of me like mist. I glanced back, expecting to see the figure, but the hallway was empty. Then I heard a shuffling sound, like someone dragging their feet. "Come back!" The whisper was louder now and filled with desperation. I sprinted towards the sound, my heart pounding, the whispers guiding me like a twisted compass. The key felt heavier, as if it were pulling me toward the danger. At last, I reached another door, slightly ajar. It creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, the room was dim but cluttered with hospital equipment. Monitors beeped softly, and the smell of antiseptic was overwhelming. Then everything went silent. I stepped cautiously inside, scanning the space. That's when I saw it. A journal lying open on a table, pages filled with frantic handwriting. I approached it, the atmosphere thick with tension. I could feel it holding its breath, waiting for me. I reached for the journal, then hesitated. The droning buzz of the fluorescent lights faded, and everything felt unbearably still. Suddenly the door slammed shut behind me, and the whispers crescendoed into a chaotic roar. I spun around, fear surging through me. What had I just unleashed? I jerked back from the journal, heart racing. The door rattled against its frame, as if someone, or something, was trying to break in. Panic clawed at my throat. I had to make a choice. Flee or find out what this place was hiding. "Help us!" The voice was louder now, echoing in my ears. I squinted at the journal, drawn to it despite the chaos around me. I needed to know what it contained. I took a deep breath and stepped closer. The pages were filled with scribbles, drawings, and half-finished thoughts. It seemed to chronicle someone's descent into madness, thoughts spiraling out of control. I skimmed through the frantic notes, words leaping out at me. "They're watching. The man in the shadows. We won't be free." Each line sent a shiver down my spine. I was just about to flip to the next page when the whispers intensified again. "Hurry!" they urged. I pressed my palms down on the table, fighting the urge to scream. Then I spotted it, a name at the top of one page. Dr. Hargrove. The name rang a bell. I remembered whispers about a doctor who conducted experiments at the hospital, pushing patients too far. I had heard rumors, but this journal seemed to hold the truth. A loud bang echoed from behind me, making me jump. I whipped around, ready to confront whatever was waiting in the dark. The door stood firm, but I could feel eyes on me, unseen and hungry. With newfound urgency, I turned back to the journal. As I rifled through the notes, I stumbled upon a drawing. My stomach lurched. It was a sketch of the figure I'd seen behind the door earlier, pale and hollow-eyed. Every hair on my body stood on end. I couldn't shake the feeling that this figure was connected to the man the journal was warning about. Suddenly, the lights above me flickered violently, and I realized I wasn't alone. "Let me out!" I screamed, scrambling for the door handle. It wouldn't budge. The whispers were deafening now, drowning out my thoughts. "You must understand," they cried, but I felt my grip on reality slipping. I pounded on the door again, desperation fueling my strength. Just when I thought I would give in to panic, the door swung open with a creaking groan. A figure stood in the doorway, bathed in shadow. "Took you long enough," he said. A twisted grin spread across his face. My breath hitched. I was in the presence of someone dangerous. I froze, eyes locked onto his. "Who are you?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "I'm your guide," he said, stepping forward, "and you've just awakened what was meant to stay hidden." Before I could react, he lunged at me, and everything went dark. I stumbled through darkness, heart pounding in my chest. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. The air felt thick, like I was wading through fog. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear murmurs swirling around me. "Help us, please." The words echoed, pulling at the edges of my sanity. Suddenly, a flash of light pierced the blackness. I blinked, trying to adjust. I found myself in a narrow, dimly lit hallway. The walls were damp and lined with peeling paint. Shadows danced, teasing my eyes. I pressed my back against the cold wall, my breath shaky. "Where am I?" I whispered to myself. I glanced down the hall, unsure of which direction to take. The whispers still lingered, rising in urgency. They felt alive, wrapping around me. "This way," came a voice, softer and more insistent. Against my better judgment, I moved toward the sound. Each step echoed, a heavy thud against the silence. I reached a door on my right, its surface scratched and worn. A metal plate read Patient Room 7. My heart raced again. Was this part of the hospital? Was I still lost in Dr. Hargrove's world? I hesitated, but slowly turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a small, cramped room. The curtains were drawn tight, casting eerie shadows across the floor. A bed stood in the corner, stripped of sheets, and a single flickering bulb struggled to illuminate the space. I stepped inside, scanning the room. Papers lay scattered on a desk, and a chill spread through the air. That's when I saw it, a photo on the floor, partially hidden beneath a crumpled sheet. I knelt down, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. The photo was old, faded. It showed a group of patients and a man in a white coat. Dr. Hargrove, I assumed. Their faces were twisted in expressions of fear and anguish. I studied it closer and realized there was something scrawled on the back. "Find the truth before it's too late." That message sent a jolt through me. Suddenly, I felt a surge of determination. I needed to uncover what had happened here. But before I could process my thoughts, the light bulb flickered violently again and then went out, plunging me into darkness. Panic set in. The whispers grew louder, swirling in a chaotic cacophony. "You have to leave!" they cried out, tearing at my mind. I felt the air shift, something cold brushing against my cheek. My instincts kicked in. There was no time to waste. I stumbled back toward the door, nearly tripping over a broken chair. Bathed in silence once more, I shoved my way through the doorway and sprinted down the hall, following the faint calls of the voices. Just as I arrived at what appeared to be a staircase, I heard a thundering sound behind me. I glanced over my shoulder. Shadows twisted, coiling like smoke, solidifying into a figure at the end of the hall. "Turn back!" he shouted, and I froze. My heart raced as I recognized him, the twisted grin, the guide. I hesitated, dread washing over me. I thought I had known fear, but this was unlike anything else. In that moment, I realized whatever I found next would either lead to my escape or seal my fate. I took a deep breath and dashed down the stairs. The staircase spiraled down into darkness, each step creaking beneath my weight. Shadows flickered, and I half expected the figure behind me to follow. I focused on the next step, on the glimmer of hope that awaited me below. I could feel the cold sweat trickling down my back, anxiety threatening to pull me into despair. As I reached the bottom, I stumbled into a larger room. A stark fluorescent light buzzed overhead, illuminating what appeared to be an abandoned waiting area. Papers littered the floor, and the chairs were overturned as if a struggle had taken place. The air felt stale, as if this place hadn't taken a breath in years. I noticed a door off to my left, slightly ajar. I could hear muffled voices seeping through. "No, please, you have to believe me," one voice pleaded, a tremor lacing through its tone. I crept closer, instinctively lowering my body to peer inside. Through the crack, I saw 3 figures silhouetted against a shield of light. One was a woman, her face streaked with tears. The other 2 were men, their expressions dark and angry. "You did this to us! You need to fix it!" the woman cried out. A chill spread through me. Were they talking about Dr. Hargrove? Or were they victims of whatever twisted experiments took place in this hospital? My mind raced as I listened intently. The voices faded momentarily, and I considered sneaking in to get a clearer picture of what was happening. Suddenly the noise from the hallway erupted, a ghostly howl rising, vibrating through the air like tortured souls. I jerked back, pressing against the wall. The door swung open unexpectedly, and the woman almost collided with me. Her eyes were wild, reflecting sheer panic. "Run!" she screamed, not recognizing me in the dim light. I hesitated just long enough for her to disappear down the hall, urging me to follow. In that moment, I couldn't breathe. A surge of urgency propelled me forward, and I ran after her. The hallway twisted and turned, but I could hear the heavy thumping of footsteps behind me, more than just the sound of my own racing heart. The men were coming after her. "What's happening?" I gasped, unable to comprehend the urgency of the situation. But the woman was gone, leaving me alone in a maze of horror. I darted into another room, slamming the door shut and locking it with trembling fingers. Staring around the small space, I found more papers scattered across the floor. I bent down to gather them, my breath hitching in my throat. They contained records, names, dates, and a few jagged notes scribbled in the margins. As I flipped through, one stood out. Subject 7. Must not disclose. The procedure is irreversible. My stomach dropped. I wanted to scream, to deny what I was reading. Before I could calm my thoughts, the door rattled violently. "She's in here. We need her," came the jagged voice of one of the men. My heart raced anew. I was trapped, cornered in a hell of my own making. With no time left, I shoved the papers into my pocket and prepared to face whatever was on the other side. In that instant, I knew I had a choice to make, either confront the threats or search for the truth. Then, the door burst open and the shadows poured in. I braced myself, halfway between fear and defiance, as the door flew open, slamming against the wall. The two men stormed in, their faces twisted with desperation and anger. The moment I caught sight of them, I felt my heart sink deeper into my chest. "We have to end this," one of them shouted, his voice ragged and hoarse. I didn't recognize him, but the desperation in his gaze made it clear he was chasing something vital, something he believed only the woman could provide. "Where did she go?" I don't know," I stammered, backing away from them. My eyes darted around the room, seeking an exit that didn't exist. "Please, just let me go." They ignored my plea, moving closer, their shadows stretching out like fingers toward me. The whispers added to the tension, swirling around us, growing louder with each second. "Help us. Stop him. Find the truth." It was as if I had stumbled into a living nightmare. The weight of their intentions hung in the air like a noose, tightening with every second I remained trapped. I needed a way out, but I couldn't let fear consume me. I remembered the key still clutched tightly in my hand, my only source of power in this twisted place. With an unexpected surge of confidence, I thrust the key forward, almost involuntarily. "I know what you want. I'm not here to hurt anyone." They paused momentarily, their brows furrowing in confusion, which gave me just enough time to take a step back into the room's corner. "What do you mean?" the other man barked, more defensive than inquisitive. The whispers. "They're asking for help. You're not what you think you are, and neither am I." I felt the weight of the key pulling at me, invigorating me, urging me to focus. "I can help you, but you have to trust me." "Trust?" the first man scoffed, stepping forward, shadows pooling around him like smoke as he reached for me. "Listen," I nearly shouted, desperation tinting my voice. "Whatever happened here, it was because of him, wasn't it? Dr. Hargrove, you're not the monsters here, he is." The room fell silent, tension thickening as it hung in the air. I could see uncertainty flicker in their eyes. "Stop!" The last thing I wanted was for them to draw closer again. "We need to find out where she went. We need to expose the truth, about him, about everything he did." I realized I was no longer just fighting to save myself. I was fighting for them too, and for the voices that still echoed in my head. They had been wronged, just like me. Slowly, the second man nodded, his wild determination shifting into an uneasy alliance. "Fine," he said, glancing sideways at his companion, "but only if you help us find her." It felt like a fragile truce forged under the weight of desperation. I could practically hear the whispers resolving back into a choir of urgency, guiding us closer to whatever truth lay ahead. "Let's go," I said, taking a deep breath, shoving past the remnants of fear. Together, we stepped out of the room, heading back into the ephemeral darkness of the ward and the unknown horrors that awaited us outside. As we moved down the dim corridors, the lights flickered sporadically, casting long shadows that danced menacingly. "Do you hear that?" one of them asked, slightly breathless. I strained to listen. The haunting whispers were still there, but now I could hear a new sound, a faint sobbing echoing from further down. "Over there!" I pointed, and we rushed toward the noise, my heart pounding with anticipation. Each footfall felt like a stride toward revelation. As we turned the corner, we skidded to a halt. The figure of the woman knelt in the center of the room. She was clutching something tightly in her hands. "You made it!" She glanced up through disheveled hair, panic etched into her features. "What's happening?" I rushed toward her, kneeling beside her. "What can we do?" "They're coming back for me," she cried out, fear spilling from her eyes. "You have to help me. I have the truth, but he won't stop. We need to confront him." The murmurs intensified, as if the room itself held its breath. I could feel the key pulsing again, the gravity of it growing heavy in my palm. "Do you have the key?" she asked, eyes wide with fear and hope. I hesitated, staring at her before nodding. "Yes, I think it's meant for something. To unlock something important. Then we need to end this before it's too late," she said, her voice gaining strength. "The man in the shadows has to be stopped. He's the one keeping the others trapped, keeping us trapped." In that moment, a chilling breeze swept through the room, bringing with it a sense of something unseen creeping closer. The whispers escalated into a deafening chorus, filling my ears, swarming like angry bees. The lights flickered one last time, and then darkness enveloped us once more. An oppressive silence hung in the air. "Are you with me?" I asked, looking at the two men, the woman, my accidental allies in this chaotic struggle. Beside me, the woman nodded fiercely. "We're going to face him together. We need to find the truth, whatever that truth is." I felt it, the weight of a journey that wasn't over yet, a counterbalance of dread and determination. And even as the darkness settled around us, I understood that whatever awaited us, something far deeper, far darker, would never truly let go. "Let's finish this," I whispered. With a deep breath, we moved forward. Together, we stepped into the unknown, chased by the persistent echoes of the whispers that would follow me long after I found my way back to the light. In the end, would we find freedom? Or would we become shadows ourselves? Only time would tell.